Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about, in my opinion, what I think the strongest moon sign is. Now, the first sign I'm going to talk about Aries. Now, the moon in Aries, well, this could be a very strong placement for, well, or at least a strong placement for the moon, often reacting when standing up for others, when they react to things and themselves, and standing up for oneself, very could be confrontational, and also can exhibit a lot of courage, fortitude, be very outspoken, and really their emotional needs can be connected with competition, things of a combative nature such as mixed martial arts, boxing, wrestling, and often very fearless in terms of their responses and reactions. But I don't see them as quite the strongest placement for the moon. Now, going to the moon in Taurus. Now, the moon in Taurus can actually be very strong placement for it because it's in its exaltation. And looking at the Taurus moon can be very strong in the chart because it can help give stability to sometimes a rather mutable or flighty chart, and certainly can make the person at least a little bit more stubborn, I think, than otherwise indicated. And really also a very strong emotional need for stability. Now, the thing about this is this moon placement can give very strong perseverance. Many of you may have heard of Howard Stern. Best of my knowledge, has Taurus Moon, and he's a prolific shock jock. Yeah, I don't know if any of you saw the movie Private Parts he was in, but in the movie it showed how he showed a lot of perseverance during a time when people at the place he was working at was doing whatever they can to get him to quit, and he just stayed there and stayed until he uh, managed to have his own way in terms of what he was going to do on the show, and they didn't allow them. He did not allow those people to drive them out, and he ultimately reached the pinnacle of success in terms of the shock jock, arguably the most famous shock jock around. So, but I still don't see this as the strongest moon placement. However, I'm going to go to the moon in Gemini now. Now, moon in Gemini, I understand it's a mutable sign, and it's not known, not known for overabundance of strength of character, which really this is what I'm basically going to be basing. The selection is going to be based on the intensity and really the strength of character, the power of the moon, in really overall. But as far as the moon in Gemini goes, the moon in Gemini, even though it's funny about this moon, not in its dignity, exaltation, detriment, or fall, can still be very pronounced and prominent and come out stronger in the chart than at least most moon signs. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that the moon is about response. It's responsive, it's reactionary. A lot of times we're doing more responsing than we are in acting, which would be the sun sign. But Gemini moon can have a lot of long-winded, loquacious, I guess you call them, responses. And you could ask a Gemini moon a question, and they'll give you sometimes a 2-hour dissertation, as opposed to a more incisive or concise response. Jack Nicklaus, legendary golfer, gave a very long-winded response one time to a question he was asked, and he has a Gemini moon. And at the end of the question, he said, "Well, I talked so much I forgot what the question was." Well, that kind of epitomizes the Gemini moon energy. And Gemini moon can also give a lot more flexibility, really, to a rather fixed and immutable chart. It can come out stronger in terms of the impact on the astrological chart, the personality, I think, more so than maybe all the other moon signs. But it's still not the strongest moon sign. I do not see it as that. So anyway. Well, the next sign, the moon in Cancer, it's one of the strongest moon placements because, of course, it's in its dignity. It's very strongly emotionally responsive and sympathetic, and perhaps good listeners. It is at home in this sign, and very receptive. The moon in Cancer can give very strong nurturing energy, and could even make a rather colder, undemonstrative looking chart a little bit more, give more sensitivity, compassion, and sympathy to it. They could be exceptional listeners, perhaps the best of all the moon signs, because it has probably an understanding in terms of when they're going, when it's the right time to respond, because the moon is associated with reactions and responses. The moon shows how often how one would like to be nurtured, but the moon in Cancer can be very nurturing. So it's really at home in its sign, but it's not the strongest moon sign. It's certainly it's one of the strongest placements because it is in its dignity. Now, next moon sign. Well, the Leo moon can come out somewhat strong given it's a fixed sign. And really, Leo energy is very dramatic. So this could be a lot of expression of very dramatic emotions, and really emotions expressed very flamboyantly in a very loud, boisterous manner. So when they come out, it could be very fierce and with a lot of that Leo-like ferocity. And really, Leo moon can be very strong in terms of their character, could be very courageous and have a lot of fortitude, and especially when trying to get personal recognition as well. But the thing about it is that, and like I stated before, their emotions can be expressed with a lot of ferocity, but not the strongest moon placement overall. At least I don't see it as that. Now, next sign I want to talk about, well, the Virgo Moon. Well, Virgo Moon, I mean, it's not, I don't see this as being really a strong moon placement. It's not in it's not in dignity, exaltation, detriment, or fall, and it's a mutable sign. So it's not very pronounced. There could be a very strong unconscious connection to incessant and borderline compulsive worrying, I think, if that's possible, and also very overly judgmental and really a need to criticize, and when upset, this is how Virgo Moon can act, I believe. It's really one, I mean, Virgo moons have a propensity to worry, and it's really, to me, it's not one that I would say is the strongest moon sign. So that one is out as far as the strongest moon sign goes. Now, going to Libra Moon. Well, Libra Moon really is one that generally is not one to make waves. There could be a very strong emotional need for having peace and really not having really, they just really are averse to making those waves. And I think but at the same time, there can be emotional need for fairness and justice, and Libra Moon can certainly abhor injustice, and they want their balance. And the Libra Moon can give a strong proponent for fairness, and really and can help balance some of the other energy a little bit in the chart. If there's if there's an overemphasis on perhaps whether it be extroversion or introversion, or there's really or if it's a strong emotional chart, Libra Moon I think could help balance this and, like say, give it a little bit more intellectual sociability as an example. But it's not the most combative moon, and Libra, I mean, even though Libra Moon will stand up for beliefs if there's something unfair, they're ones that don't really want to rock the boat, so to speak. So they're not, I don't see this as the strongest moon sign. So anyway, well, the next sign up I want to talk about, moon sign, is Sagittarius Moon. Now, I think even though Sagittarius is a mutable sign, it can come out fairly strongly in astrological charts. Sagittarius Moon can often be very blunt, speak that veritable truth, and sometimes to the point of demoralizing and demeaning others. And the thing about it is, remember that Sagittarius energy generally does things on a very big scale. So I think perhaps that's the reason it may come out fairly strong in one's charts, maybe a little stronger than the average moon sign. Sagittarius energy is expansive. I think it can expand the emotional energy. Many of you may have followed NBA legend Michael Jordan, and he was not exactly known for tactful remarks. And I mean, when he'd say one time, our team play, we played like doo-doo, meaning our team. I mean, the Cancer Senate I think softened this energy a little bit, though. But the thing about it is he obviously, I think a lot of his sports ability, affinity for basketball, I should say, had a lot to do with that Sagittarius moon. And when he reacted very strongly emotionally, it would be very strong. And Sagittarius moon, I think, can expand though that emotional energy. And also coupled with him having a Cancer ascendant, obviously played a role in the strong emotions. A Sagittarius moon can often have that emotional need for adventure, the outdoors, exploration, and certainly can enlarge, as I stated before, enlarge the emotional nature, but a little bit. But I don't see this as the strongest moon sign. Now, I'm going to talk about Capricorn Moon. Now, Capricorn Moon can be somewhat pronounced because it's in its detriment. I think there's a, you look at signs that are in like detriment and fall. There's a little misconception about that. I think what it is, a lot of people think, well, that energy is so weak, it's not going to be expressed in terms of characteristics. I don't really agree with that. I think when you look at Capricorn, like for example, Capricorn Moon being in its detriment, it's just not. It's really where that energy is not being expressed the way it really needs to be. Capricorn is the opposite sign of Cancer. Of course, it's the antithesis of the sign of zodiac sign Cancer. And when you have the moon in Capricorn, it's really those emotions can be somewhat inhibited. Remember, Capricorn is the sign of restriction and limitation, but this still could be somewhat emphasized because it's in its detriment, and the way it stands out is because the person may be somewhat inhibited emotionally. Of course, there's other aspects, elements to look in the chart. If you have a preponderance of water, for example, a water ascendant or water sun sign would obviously make a factor into the equation, so to speak. So, but anyway, you understand what I'm saying, I'm sure. Capricorn Moon can really have some really strong characteristics in terms of attaining ambitions and career aspirations, and a lot of single-mindedness, a strong desire, emotional need for success. But I don't think it's the strongest moon sign. It might be actually one of the stronger moon signs in terms overall, in terms of its influence on the chart, coupled with the strength of character. That's basically the criteria I'm using it to, in my mind, to ascertain what the strongest moon sign is. Anyway, going to the moon in Aquarius. Now, the moon in Aquarius can be strong somewhat, since it's in a fixed sign, but no special prominence, or not pronounced very strongly because it's not in its dignity, exaltation, fall, or detriment. Now, there can be a very strong emotional need for humanitarianism and being very progressive and innovative, stepping outside the box. And I'm sure a lot of people that have Aquarius Moon often have very far-reaching ideas and can help others out, maybe nurture others this way, and often may like to be nurtured through maybe innovation and things that are new, like new technology, new ideas, going outside the box, so to speak. But I don't see this as, and they're also, I mean, Aquarius is a sign, of course, can be very non-conforming and will often try the radical things that others may not necessarily do, in this case as an emotional need, but I don't see this quite as the strongest moon sign. Now, going to Pisces Moon. Pisces Moon can come out fairly strong in a natal chart, partly because I think a lot of that has to do because it is a water sign. And I've noticed the Pisces Moon can really be very sensitive, and it really, Pisces energy can have very strong, all-encompassing emotions. Pisces Moon, even if they don't show it superficially and say, they have like a Capricorn or Gemini ascendant, a sign that's not very demonstrative, they won't necessarily show it on the surface, but Pisces Moon might be about the most sensitive moon placement. This is a sign, Pisces Moon can give a really strongly modify a more stolid or stoic, objective, or even undemonstrative chart. And really, there can be a very strong emotional need for isolation and solitude as well, and can strongly perhaps even modify a very extroverted and gregarious chart. You look at, I believe she was a mixed martial artist, and she's been in some wrestling as well. Ronda Rousey has a Pisces Moon, and she is one to become sensitive and cry rather easily, I think, from what I understand. but yet she has the Sun in Aquarius and Gemini ascendant, and those two signs are not exactly notorious for being overly emotionally exuberant, so to speak. So I think a lot of that sensitivity has to do with her Pisces moon. I had a friend of mine that worked at a Kmart one time, and she had Aquarius Sun, Sagittarius ascendant, and those two signs are not exactly known to be emotionally exuberant, so to speak, but she had a Pisces moon, and she got very upset one time and actually sobbed and cried. I think she had gotten suspended from work for something. There was this, I guess, some kind of conflict with one of the managers there, and what I mean, and I saw her. I felt bad. I saw her crying and sobbing, and it shows that Pisces Moon can come out very strongly in terms of making, look at making a chart that might be somewhat insensitive, add some strong sensitivity to it. But I don't think Pisces Moon is the strongest moon sign. It actually can come out fairly strong in a chart, though. Now, last but not least, the sign I'm going to actually unveil, and no big shocker, don't be flabbergasted or be in a state of shock, people, but I'm going to go with the moon in Scorpio, and partly because Scorpio is, I do believe, unequivocally the strongest zodiac sign. But Scorpio, moon can actually, Scorpio moon is in its fall, and remember that this is a fixed sign. And it's also the fact that, I think part of it is because, the fall, Scorpio moon is in its fall, and it's considered the worst position for the moon, but it does come out in a very pronounced way because, like I stated before, any sign, I believe, to me, that's in its dignity, detriment, fall or exaltation can have more emphasis and can be accentuated more. And I think the moon in Scorpio is no exception. Now, people often frown on the moon in Scorpio. Well, it's connected with, Scorpio is connected with death, and Cancer is about life and procreation. That's part of the reason I believe the moon is in its fall in Scorpio. Pluto is about, Scorpio ruled by Pluto is about obliteration. But remember that Scorpio being about control, Scorpio moon can have a very strong propensity to control the emotions, which of course could be very advantageous in terms of dealing with crisis, upheavals, and emergency situations, dealing with tribulations, keeping composed, being unflappable perhaps in those emergency situations, and solving problems under duress and pressure when other people might be on the threshold of panic. Scorpio moon can often, I believe, be able to stay calm and control the emotions when it's necessary. And being a Scorpio moon people, I think, have a very strong, indomitable spirit, more so than the other signs on average. And I think, too, when I look at the moon in Scorpio, it's also, they are a sign I believe can give a lot more willpower to a more docile and passive chart. I have a friend of mine that has the sun and ascendant in Pisces. And the thing about that is, looking at that, it sounds like, probably, somewhat passive, malleable, very, not one might, to have an overabundance or strength of character or what have you. Well, he does have the sun in his sun in Pisces and Pisces ascendant actually have, it's in the Scorpio decan, both of them, but he has a Scorpio moon. And he's dealt with a certain adversity in his life, and he has done really, it really held it together, I think, admirably, and has actually literally walked greater distances to get things accomplished and done, where a lot of people, I think, would not have been able to do. And I think a lot of this is attributed to him having the Scorpio moon, because it can give very strong strength of character and willpower. So, and the thing about this too is that I think given that it's the moon, on a subconscious level, they can have the ability to transform themselves and others very positively. It could be emotional need to do this. They could also have an innate ability perhaps to manipulate the outcomes of situations in life to their advantage. And Also, the fixed emotional energy to see things through to the bitter end. Remember, Scorpio is the sign associated with death, but in many cases, Scorpio energy is about making a literal, a figurative death and putting something to an end or obliteration, having seen things come to fruition. And I think too, given that the moon is connected with intuition, and you're talking about Scorpio energy, Scorpio moon can be very willing to go deeper into beyond the superficial and subterfuge. And remember that it is connected, moon is connected with intuition. Scorpio is very intuitive in deciphering, I think, the character composition of others. And really, and because this is the moon, this could be on an emotional level as well, and really being able to understand, I think, others' emotions very deeply, and understand when someone's showing a certain emotion, if it's really fact or fallacy, so to speak. For example, if someone just acting angry, just to really keep someone pretend to be angry or acerbic, for example, just to kind of keep others away and keep others at a distance from them. Scorpio moon, I think, could probably pick up on that quicker, whether that emotion or that expression was actually veracious or not, or fact or fallacy or what have you, than the other moon signs. Now, another thing too, I think what you have to look at too, and because Scorpio moon can have their strong willpower, they could do things with a lot of emotional intensity and fixity, with an untiring spirit that, of course, I think could lead in many cases to inordinate and prodigious achievements and accomplishments. I have a friend of mine that is she has a Facebook page and she's a moon in Scorpio. She's very young, and she really has done really, I think, a superb job astrologically with a lot of her writings, and obviously has done. Scorpio moon can obviously be very proficient in astrological, occult, supernatural subjects, and I think she has done at a very young age, being able to do what she does, took it upon herself to do this things astrologically related that really a lot of other people might have procrastinated on and waited a lot longer. Remember that Scorpio is a sign not just ruled by Pluto, but Mars as well, and of course Scorpio energy could be very action oriented. So anyway, another thing too is that what I want to get on as far as moon and Scorpio is, remember that the moon and Scorpio can come out even stronger in a chart on average if you have it in an angular house, and I think especially the first. Of course, the angular houses are the first, the fourth, seventh, and 10th houses, or even if you were born on a full moon, because that could show a full culmination of this energy, or if your moon is at 29 degrees Scorpio, because I see that as the full culmination of the Scorpio energy as well. So, and even, or say, a conjunction to Jupiter, because I think, as I've stated before, that Jupiter, it's known to be the benign, benevolent planet, but could also expand and enlarge qualities astrologically. So if you have Jupiter making a conjunction to your Scorpio moon, I see this as a good possibility where those characteristics of the Scorpio moon can be more pronounced and come out stronger. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for what I believe the strongest moon sign is. And stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be talking about, in my opinion, what I think one of the worst astrology charts are. So anyway, people, two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.